Hello folks, it is time for some more hobby nightmares, and more tales, it seems, from the Midwest, because our first hobby nightmare comes from the great Almundo, and he says, "Hello North, how are things? I'm coming straight to you from St. Louis." I know, I was shocked too when I first read that line, folks. Another person from Missouri, who would have guessed? And this tale comes from the tournament scene a few years ago now. I'm talking about several years ago. Okay, fantastic. I want you to imagine the scene. Hundreds of people packing out a local convenience hall. We're all there with our armies ready to go. And in walks Steve. Now, Steve is not what I would describe as a normal hobby nightmare piece of material. Steve is a decent looking guy wearing normal clothes, he's a dad, and generally gets along with everybody in the event. Alright, no problem. He rocks up with his Eldar, of course, they were overpowered in this edition, and starts playing his normal games, and starts advancing through the tournament. Now, have you ever come across hobby tics before? Behaviours that people exhibit that aren't that great in games. Nothing too serious, just generally annoying. Well, Steve had one of those. Every time he'd win a game, I want you to act this out for your audience. Don't read this bit out loud. Okay. 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 Right, alright. So, those of you listening, I want you to listen to what I'm saying and to imagine you're in this scenario, right? Okay. I'm going to try and make this up off the top of my head. One sec. Okay. So, so you've only given me 2 sentences here to go off of, but I'm just going to... Okay, this is how I think that plays out, alright? So, you up there playing Steve. You person listening to this video, you're there playing Steve, and you're rolling some dice. He wins. You're having a good time, he wins. You're thinking, okay, time for the handshake. He leans over the table, his fist in a bunch, shakes it in your face, and goes, "Yeah." Yeah. Would that be annoying? I'd be shocked. I'd be too shocked to do anything. I'd just be like, alright, dude, guy really likes his Warhammer. Yeah. Carry on reading from this bit. Okay. As you can imagine, that got really annoying for his first opponent. But Steve had 6 more opponents that day. It was only a 1,000-point tournament. And he did this at the end of every game he won. And he won all of them, bar the last round. Oh my god. So Tales of Steve started to make their way around the convenience hall. Enter Jefferson, who we will call Jeff. Okay, cool. He walks in with a similar Eldar army, and again, takes on the entire field, but this time has a really good rep as a nice player who would shake your hand at the end of the game. Now, as I just mentioned, Tales of Steve have already made their way around the convenience hall at this time, and Steve and Jeff are in the final round. Okay. I'll cut a long story short. Jeff beat the ever-loving piss out of Steve. And at the end of the game, when things were called, he leaned over the table in Steve's face, shook his fist, and went, "Yeah!" Much to the applause, and cheering of everybody in the convenience hall. To be fair to Steve, he turned round after things went quiet, and we were all expecting him to go on some sort of tirade, and he just said, "You know what? I kind of deserve that, my dudes. Well done." I like that. That's cool. Thanks, North. That is the most passive-aggressive Midwest story that I have. Hopefully you have more coming up, because I've been in the hobby a long time, and I have a lot to share with you. The great Almundo. Thank you, man. That's awesome. That's brilliant. I mean, you gotta admire a guy who takes it on the chin like that. It goes, you know what? You know, I've done bad. I've done goofed. That's fine. You know, I can take it on the chin. I like that. I think if you come across a player like that, you can take and give in equal measure. That's cool. Don't get me wrong. I think what he did originally was a bit of a, shall we say, needless. Do you know what I mean? It was needless. There was absolutely no need to be that kind that kind of a guy, and going into your gaming session. Anyway, let's get to our next one. Mouse says, "Hi North, I'm Mouse. Don't care if you use my actual nickname. Could give two shits less if the guy I'm going to be talking about recognizes me." Oh, okay. All right. No worries. Let me have a sip of tea. Also, writing has never been my strong suit, so if this is laid out wrong, then I apologise if this is hard to read. I'm a labourer, we don't use our brains too often. I disagree. I was also a labourer on a building site. All of my family are labourers, and a lot of really smart men that I knew were labourers. They might not have been able to do much in terms of classical education, but they were very, very clever. So I don't agree. Anyway, moving on. You're giving yourself too little credit. I'm a lurker on your channel and don't comment at all, so I'll just get to the point. So, we are playing in a RTT, a Rogue Trader tournament, for those that don't know, which are typically played somewhat competitively, but mostly it's just a way to get a bunch of people together, and we don't even pair by points. Rather, just random picks for fun, and we have larger windows so we can shoot the shit while we're playing. Okay, dude, like, you're good at writing. Why are you putting yourself down? We have a trail that we follow every year, and have 5 of these in one session. Well, we had a new player this time around, and he was a bit of a longbeard. A person who has been in the game since Classic, and has been in the hobby since Rogue Trader, and stopped in 4th edition. He was a fat dude who reeked of alcohol. He said he wanted a chance to get back into it, quote unquote, and learn the game, and brought out his old Space Wolves. Now you may be thinking, why would somebody that doesn't know how to play join a tournament trail as his get back in the game session? Well, we did too, but hey, no problem, right? We play to lose anyway. Many of us use thematic lists, so no worries. This is where the issues, however, began and failed to stop. He started out by not only failing to submit his list to BCP, Best Coast Pairings, but also failed to show up even on time. No worries though, as most of us respect longbeards, and he was about 55 with some medical problems, so, you know, we cut him some slack. That's good of you. Good of you. This was a mistake. He took our kindness for weakness, evidently, and then refused to look up his army rules on the app or Wikipedia, and borderline said, "If you want to know my army rules, then look them up yourself," and constantly asked for rules to be read out for him in return. This got old real fucking quick. I'm not surprised. Yeah, like how as a neckbeard, no, not a neckbeard, an old beard, a grey beard, have you stayed in this long in the hobby? He kept bitching about how 3rd edition was so much better, and the fact you guys like this just goes to show how far the hobby has fallen. While that was annoying, if you are a more thematic player, then do not join tournament trails. Is it trials? I think you spelt it wrong, because I'm naming it trails. I'm going to say trials, right? Do not join tournament trails and bitch and moan about how sweaty it is, and act as if there are no other groups of which you can be a part of which there are many, that play Story and Crusade, but also 2nd, 3rd and 5th edition exclusively. Now, this was just a start, my dear boy. He then proceeded to hold up the RTT and ground it to a halt, and would not stop complaining about how bad it is. Keep in mind, we let him use Legends models in our RTT to help him out and be nice. But, you know, fuck that, right? He walks up to the host and tells him about how bad of a job he's doing by, and he says this, by not letting me get some wins because I deserve it, quote unquote. Now, what does that even mean? Only God knows, but I think he was insinuating that because he's the oldest there, then he wants us to maybe let him win. Again, I have no clue what he meant. Alright, okay. Right. 1 sec. This is a guy either with some mental troubles, or he's so stuck in his ways as I keep saying neckbeard, as a grey beard, that he just doesn't know how to act in a new scenario. Do you know what I mean? I've never really come across this with greybeards. They're normally like, quite nice, so this has shocked me quite a bit, this behaviour. He then proceeded to complain about not just the rules, but people's paint jobs. Okay, that's where you cross the line. Fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. I mean, it was bad as it was, because everyone's playing by the same rules, you know what I mean? Now, I see nothing wrong with being honest. Sometimes paint jobs are just dog shit, but who cares? Well, this guy apparently, because one of his biggest complaints was that he was forced to, and I quote, to play against subpar painted armies along with dealing with this dog shit game, unquote. And this was the final straw for everybody, including the host and friendly local game store owner. This was so bad, I'm underselling it in all honesty. There was a lot more he was doing, such as constantly challenging rules of which he didn't know, and calling anybody who won a cheater. Well, long story short, the host gave him an ultimatum. Either change the fucking attitude or leave. There were non-negotiables, and he was made very well aware, and I shit you not, the brother started grabbing these old models that belong in a museum and was throwing them in a wooden box, breaking most of them and saying, "I'm never coming back, this is ridiculous, I want my entry fee back." We not only didn't budge, but since he was acting aggressive, we threatened to call the cops, and he waddled his Teletubby ass out of the store. Found out later, he was arrested for domestic violence, not even a week after, and we haven't heard of the rotund reject ever again. And that's the story, and for anyone that is mad at the fat jokes, eat me. Have a good one, and good luck in your games. Bonus! There was also a Space Wolves player that modelled anuses on his Thunderwolves and said his law is the Space Marine. Oh, God, I'm not reading that. Okay. And you have a Straken proxy here for me to have a little look at. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, I do jokes, but, you know, I'm not doing bestiality jokes, dude, and it's not happening. So close to the weekend. I'm done with your degeneracy by now. That's actually a really cool model. I like that guy. That's cool. That is actually really awesome. That's actually really cool. Look at that. That's badass. That is badass. We like that. Anyway, I'll leave it on the screen as we move on to our next hobby nightmare. And if you like what I do, then please make sure you subscribe. It does help out the channel. Head on down there. Also, Composite Games could use your love, so make sure that you're also, if you're getting any models, buying from them and using the promo code Northern Exile down below to get yourself 5% off at checkout. And also, there is a painting service down below. Make sure you go and give him some love too, because, you know, he's a decent guy and he does incredibly good models. Right. Let's have a little look-see down here and see how our last hobby nightmare is. There we go. Alright. Dr. R says, "Hello, North. Given the previous stories I sent a while back being a bit tense and semi-downers, I thought I would send in a funnier and more wacky one for you to share with your subscribers. So feel free to regale your listeners with the tale of Katachan Carl." Alright. This tale harkens back to the late 90s and early noughties in the Midwest US 40k tournament scene. Dude, how many of you from the Midwest are going to send stuff in? Katachan Carl was infamous at big tournaments and made quite the name for himself as being both fun to play against and for being quite a wacky character. He was very much larger than life, and games against him were legendary in every club. Okay. As his name implies, Carl played Imperial Guard, and more specifically, Katachans. When I say Katachans, I mean only Katachans. No tanks, no Ogryn, no Chimeras, nothing else. Only Katachan infantry. So when you played him, you knew what you were going to be facing. Just tons and tons of muscled dudes with guns. But what is more remarkable is that you would only play with plastic Katachan models. You will no doubt immediately recognise the problem with what the given era I'm talking about, as most of the models in the range were still metal. Carl got around this by converting plastic Katachans with plastic weapons he would rob from Space Marines and other kits. The best conversion that he came up with were his Rough Riders. They were made from two gene stealers in running poses on a cavalry base, holding a half-tongue depressor between their upper four claws, with a Katachan riding on top like it was a surfboard and throwing a grenade. I love that. If you asked him why, he would simply say, because Gork don't surf. An obvious reference to Apocalypse Now. This wasn't his only strange conversion in the army. And the thing is, guy, right, I know that's a funny joke, but you know he sat there for a while and going, what's a funny joke I can say about these gene stealers being my chariot bearers? And he's come up with the Apocalypse Now joke. You know what I mean? It's funny until you start to think about how he came up with that. Especially if he presents it as just coming up with it off the cuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, God. Anyway. Another example was his Katachan Commander. He was built on a very large dreadnought-sized base, and said base was littered with the bodies of dead Katachan troopers glued all over it. I'll come back to that little conversion a little bit later on. A big part of why he only played with plastic models was because of his chosen army transport system. It was one of those 5-gallon plastic orange hardware store buckets with a lid. Just everything dumped inside in one big pile, like a little kid and his pail full of green plastic army men heading outside to the sandbox. When he would then set up his army, he would just grab handfuls of Katachans and place them into units ad hoc with appropriate weapons. No squad markings or anything. Every mini of whatever type was just as good as the next. Carl also carried around a carved wooden bolt pistol in his bucket. When asked about it, he always said it was because bolt pistols are what the commissars used for summary executions. However, since Katachans couldn't take commissars in their rules back then, he said that made him their commissar, and that was his sidearm. Okay, this guy is going... Alright. This guy's one bad game away from the deep end, folks. Let's see where we go. The events of this particular story date from the 2003 United States Grand Tournament in Chicago that Carl played in. In each game, Carl would set up his army as he usually did. Katachan man spam as far as the eye could see. The game would go exactly as you might predict. Massed volleys of las gunfire, followed up by waves of infantry charges, and finally, grueling, grinding close combats. The Katachans relied on sheer weight of numbers to simply make it as hard as possible to kill enough of them to control objectives or push them off the board. However, sooner or later, one or more of the units would lose big, fail the morale check, and have to fall back. When this would happen, Carl would grab his wooden bolt pistol, yell out, "You have failed the Emperor and have been judged wanting." Then, using the butt of his pistol, he would crush the plastic commander model down to the base with all the other dead Katachans. Oh my god. He'd then reach into his bucket, grab a new plastic Katachan and a tube of plastic cement, and glue the new mini down on the base over the body of the previous commander. He'd then say, "Congratulations, you've been promoted. Don't fail mankind," and continued playing. This sequence would sometimes repeat multiple times per game and even round. You might think that was annoying, but Carl was so in character, and the games against him were always tons of fun, so nobody really minded. Sure, it was a spectacle, but it injected levity, and it broke up the sometimes serious tournament play with hilarity, and everybody loved it. Oh my god. I ran into him a few times myself in my tournament hound days, and he is every bit of the wacky character that lives up to the tales that people tell of him. He was loud, funny, gregarious, and jovial, whilst also being honest, fun, and very kind. He was both a good player as well as a good sport. A true gentleman, a real Chad's Chad. I'd liken him to a cross between your deranged uncle and Father Christmas. He even aspired a saying in one of the area clubs. In a world of beardy gits, be a Carl. A true legend who deserves his tale told if ever there was one. Cheers, Dr. R. Like that kind of behaviour, I'm not going to lie, would probably grate on me after a while. Do you know what I mean? I'd probably get a bit annoyed after a bit. Just be like, oh, dude, come on. Do you know what I mean? But I can't really have a go at him. If you're having a good game against this guy, and this guy is putting himself out there as somebody who is a good opponent to be around, I can't really have a go at him too much. Do you know what I mean? It is what it is. As long as it's not like... If this was something that he'd do and then be an absolute neckbeard about the way he played, then fine. But if he's doing that to everybody as well, if that's his like 5th game, and you come up and play him and he's doing it with you, you just laugh and go along with it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not really one for gaming antics too much. Because it's sort of... I don't know. I always think, what would my parents think if they walked in and saw me playing this game? You know? I know that's the wrong attitude, by the way. It's not a good attitude, you know, but I've always thought, you know, I want this hobby to be accepted. I want this hobby to be something that you do normally, that you're not ashamed to do. Not that I am, but do you know what I mean? Like, I want it to be like, oh, you're going to play Warhammer? Oh, okay, yeah, cool. You know, and everybody thinks that. But if your girlfriend walks in and you're playing Warhammer and somebody's crushing his models going, don't fail the Emperor, you know, it's not a great look, man. And, she's not going to take your hobby seriously from then on in. Every time you want to go play Warhammer, she'll go, oh my god, really? We could be going to the park. We could be going doing something ourselves. Why you have to go and play these child's games, right? And don't knock that until you've had it happen to you. There'll be a lot of people there going, I wouldn't put up with that. How do you know? You probably never had a girlfriend, alright? So, I'm telling you now, like, when you do, or when you do have a girl who you introduce your hobby to, you want them to be able to say, I know, you're going to spend some quality time with fellow adults, which is true, which is great. But, you know, you don't want them to be walking into your hobby store and going, oh my god, 1, this place smells of shit. 2, everybody's got the pants round their arses. 3, why is everybody smelling of BO? And 4, why is that man shouting about Catachans and bashing them over the head with a toy gun? Do you know what I mean? I want to curate a hobby spaces that are normal. That you walk in there and there's just normal lads and girls there having a good time. Throwing some dice, laughing and joking and doing that. So, whilst I appreciate the jovial sincerity of this guy, and I appreciate that he gets away with it because he's a nice guy and he does it in a tournament where there aren't going to be very many normies. If he did this in a normal Games Workshop store, at a tournament this works because you're surrounded by other dudes, right? But if you're in a normal store, this happens in my store, I ask him to shut the fuck up. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'm running, I know it might seem like a buzzkill, but if I'm running a store and this guy's doing that, he either shuts up or he's banned. It's annoying, I know, but it's just the way that I would do it. In a tournament, though, you're surrounded by other neckbeards or other guys who are really into the hobby. Maybe even one of them's me. I wouldn't mind. If I'm at a tournament, I wouldn't care, right? Go for it. But if I'm in my local store, or you're in the store that I'm running, or you're in somebody's home even, and you start acting like that, I'd be like, yeah, man, either tone it down or don't play, right? This ain't the place. This ain't the place, brother, you know? Anyway, I love you a long time. I will speak to you on Monday, when we'll have some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.